Hello everyone, it's Kylie at the Cherry Valley Public Library. I'm with you today to go over our April book group's TBR, or to be read list. So just like last time, I'm going to quickly go through the synopsis and maybe some tone or atmosphere descriptors of the different books that our 3 adult book groups chose to read and discuss in the month of April. We are going to be doing all of our book group meetings via Zoom. So keep that in mind. And at the very end, I will give you a refresher on how you can register to join in on the book group discussions. Without further ado though, let's go to the first book group's pick. The first book group that is meeting in April is Zooming Along with Nonfiction. This is my other book group that I run, and it alternates every month with my fiction book group. The book that I chose for April is 80 Days. Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bislan's History-Making Race Around the World by Matthew Goodman. So this story is about these 2 women, Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bislan, who were both journalists in the 1880s. Nellie Bly is a Northerner, and she worked for Pulitzer's award-winning newspaper, The World. Elizabeth Bislan was a Southerner from South Carolina. She wrote for the Cosmopolitan, and she was more into literature and prose, and essays, things of that sort. She didn't really love newspapers. So they were very starkly different women, but they were both successful journalists in a very male-dominated world, especially in the Victorian era. On top of that, already carving these successful careers in a male-dominated career field, they embarked on a race around the world in 80 days. This all came about from Jules Verne's book, Around the World in 80 Days. His lead character, Phileas Fogg, is the world record holder for circumventing the globe. Nellie Bly got the idea for one of her stories to try and beat that and get around the world in 75 days. So she embarked from New York and took a ship across the Atlantic Ocean to go to England for the first leg of her trip. As that was getting some publicity, leading up to her departure, Elizabeth Bislan's boss at the Cosmopolitan decided he couldn't resist getting in on this. He saw making it a competition would just skyrocket ratings and revenue. So he convinced Elizabeth Bislan to race Nellie Bly across the globe. She also began in New York, but she began with a railway trip from New York to California to begin. So these 2 women were off to the races on November 14th, 1889 in opposite directions to not only beat Phileas Fogg's record of 80 days, but also beat each other to return to New York City. This is just such a fun example of some of the awesome things that women started to do right around the turn of the century. And I think one of the best things is it's not just the story of the women, it's also a really interesting walk through the whole world during the 1880s and leading up to the turn of the century, and just seeing a slice of life from everywhere during that time. So it's got that exciting adventure of their race, but also just the adventure of exploring the world through their eyes. It's a really, really fun read, and I'm excited to discuss this one in April. If this intrigues you, like it did me, we will be meeting on Friday, April 9th at 10:30 a.m. The next book group meeting in April is the Morning Mysteries book group, one of our mystery groups at Cherry Valley. Their pick for April is Winter Counts by David Heska, Wanbli, Weiden. Might be mispronouncing that, but this is about our character Virgil Wounded Horse, who is the local enforcer on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Essentially what this means is that when justice is denied either through the legal system or through the tribal leaders, he steps in to dole out the punishment that those who feel unjustified might desire, and one that the person on the receiving end won't forget. So a bit of a strong man, the strong arm on the reservation. Where the plot of this really takes off is when heroin makes its way onto the reservation and unfortunately into the life of Virgil Wounded Horse's nephew. This sets him off on a very exciting and dangerous journey to find where these drugs are coming from to the reservation and making them stop. He goes on this cross-country adventure with his ex-girlfriend to try and figure out where this is coming from, encounters drug cartels, has to face his own demons, and has to recognize the struggles that come with being Native American in the modern United States, and kind of just coming to terms with the reality of his identity and the past of his people and the past of his own life. So this is a nice mixture of a gritty crime procedural. I've heard it is very literary in the writing still, and there is like that impactful aspect of just the existence of the troubles that Native Americans face and the difficulties of living on a reservation still, even in modern days, between both the injustice that they feel they face and drugs making its way into a community that can be very vulnerable to things like that. Sounds like an awesome read, a departure maybe from the normal like cozy mysteries, but I think that this gritty like crime procedural could be a very, very exciting way to encounter a population you might not get to read about that often. If you think this sounds like an awesome read, Morning Mysteries will be meeting on Thursday, April 15th at 10 a.m. The final book group meeting in the month of April is Young at Heart. Reminder, this is the book group for adult readers who love to indulge in young adult literature. Their pick for April is The Watch That Ends the Night by Allan. Now, you might be able to tell from the cover, this is a poetic retelling of that disastrous final trip of the ship Titanic. This is an interesting take on it, one being a poetic retelling, that poetry and verse that is ever so popular in young adult and middle grade fiction right now. But it also allows Allan to kind of go across a really broad perspective in the types of people that were on the Titanic on that fatal trip. So I think I read it's about 24 different perspectives that crosses social lines, class lines, station lines. You have captains and crew members on the ship you read about. You have a refugee and you read her experience. Some trust fund types that are on here, living in the luxury, even children. And I think my favorite one is the thought of you actually see the perspective of the iceberg. And I just love the personification of this looming danger that is just awaiting disaster for the ship. But on top of those very personal experiences that you're getting to see through those poetic words, Allan also ties in actual historical documents, undertaker notes, and telegraphs to really round out the experience that these people had, and just gives a lot of information to the emotions that he is putting into these perspectives he's giving us. So might not be for the lightest of heart if, knowing that a disaster is what's awaiting these characters that you're learning about and becoming just close to knowledgeable about. That might be a bit of a turnoff, but I think that it can be so impactful to really see through all of these different classes and crossing those lines and seeing the same emotions, seeing the same fate come up, and kind of that equalizer at the end of the day of what really makes us human. I think it's a very impactful story to read, and the Titanic is just one of those stories that will always go down in history. I mean, infamously. And I think this is a really intriguing look to take into it on a bit of a deeper level rather than just the ritzy and glamorous side. You get to see the real life side too. So if you think that this book sounds like something you might enjoy reading, you want to try a novel in verse, they're really great, I promise. Join Young at Heart on Thursday, April 15th at 6 p.m. So there you have all of our books for our April book group discussions. If any of these sound super interesting to you and you'd love to join us on the discussion, let me tell you how you can go about that. You have 3 different options to register. You can give us a call at the library, you can come in and visit us inside, or you can go to our online event calendar. Once you are registered, you are then eligible to check out the print copies we have in the library. Of course, if you have your own copy, by all means. We also have our ebook and audiobook service on Libby or Overdrive. Those are options too. Just know that if you are going to read it electronically, still be sure to register so that you get the link to meet with us in the Zoom meeting room on the discussion date. I really hope to see some of you guys in these book group discussions. I think we've got awesome picks again in April. If you have any questions about anything, again, just reach out to us, let us know. We're always happy to help answer those for you. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.